It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Edward C., the External Research Program Manager at Smart Technologies. He holds over 30 utility patent applications and is one of the primary inventors of the Smart Table, 3D tools in Notebook, and proximity wake features of Smart's interactive flat panel displays. His PhD research on speech and gestures has been featured on the BBC, CNN, National Geographic, Engadget, and PC Gamer. Dr. C manages the graduate internship program at Smart Technologies and at a relationship with the academic community. He's a two-time computer science alumni, finishing his Master's of Science in Computer Science in 2004 and his PhD in 2008. So welcome, Dr. C, and we are thrilled to have you talk about creativity. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you. Do you mind? I'm just going to put my notes here. So thank you guys very much. I'm going to repeat some of the things that Tony said during his talk. I'm a proud alumni. It's actually three degrees that I've had from the U of C, bachelor's, master's, and PhD. And my goal today is to make it very interactive. I don't want this to be just all about me. I want to talk a little bit about creativity and how you guys can apply that in your day-to-day, in the things that you work on day-to-day. And to begin the talk and to set the stage that we want it to be very interactive, I'm going to ask you guys a question. It's the same question that one of the chief executive officer asked me. And that question is, what's the most important thing for life? Any guesses? Shout it out. Oxygen. Water? Fun. Water. Anything else? Relationships. Food. All right. Reproduction. So the CEO told me this isn't a trick question. Like I spent some time thinking about it. So my response to this question was oxygen. No, it was not oxygen. It was creativity, right? And he's saying this isn't a trick question. The answer was oxygen. And to me, creativity is like oxygen, actually. For me, without that, it really is a struggle. And the way I want to describe this is maybe I'll just, my goal today is just to tell you a bunch of stories. And ideally, there's not much on the slides, but I'll tell you some stories from when I was really young and how those kind of had a big impact on me and just creativity in general. So one of my earliest memories as a child was just playing in my parents' backyard. We didn't have a lot of money for different toys, so we'd have one car that we could play with. And yes, there's the obvious thing, oh yeah, the car can be a boat, it could be a plane. But no, after you've done that a few times, then you really got to get creative, right? You have to start thinking, man, maybe this is a blob or something, or maybe it's a fireball, or maybe it's this this rolling pin or something like that, or maybe it's a projectile. You really have to explore your creativity when you don't have a lot to play with. And actually, I found that is probably one of the earliest experiences that I have with creativity, is just not having a lot of toys around, just having to think on your own. Well, what else could this be? How else can I play with it? Because as a kid, you get bored really quickly, right? And that had a huge impact on me. And so, I remember when I was in junior high school, I took I took French immersion. And in French immersion, we had this task, and I struggled with French immersion a lot. One of the tasks that we had was to basically write these love stories. There's a man and a woman, and they're writing these love stories back and forth, and everybody in the class had taken their turn except me. And so, what I ended up doing is, instead of writing like another kind of soppy love story between. I actually wrote it as like more as a declaration. It was more, the concept was their message had been intercepted, by the agency, and essentially they were going to be captured, and really this message wasn't a love story, but it was more like a broadcast message to everyone in the society. And I remember this distinctly because my French teacher told me, like, yes, he struggles a lot with French, but he's creative, so that's okay. Like somehow it was okay. Like everything was going to work out, because he was creative. Actually, after this particular story, the whole class wanted me to do another presentation. They wanted me to do another story to come up with, something that we would do for the next correspondence. And it was this kind of weird sci-fi flick, but it was a lot of fun, right? It was an opportunity where I discovered that French class was not just about learning, the grammar, learning the language, learning, memorizing all of these things. It was more about, it's just another tool. It's just another tool for creativity. And if that's the case, I'm going to spend the time. I'm going to spend the time to learn it. Now, writing for me has never been something that's easy. I've always struggled with it, right? I remember in high school, I spent, hours and hours, like going in at lunchtime and, going with our English teacher to kind of rewrite things. And that's always been a real struggle. And one of the, even today, like if I'm writing like a paper, for example, you'll find that, a lot of my edits, it kind of looks like a GeoCities homepage. I mean, there's just stuff everywhere, right? And there's always like kind of errors that I've made, and this is just part of it, right? Like it's just part of that process. But what I found was, even though I wasn't necessarily good at it, because I could be expressive, because I could be creative in the writing, I would spend the time. I would spend the time to do it. I would spend the time to do it really well, and to spend the extra time to edit it, make sure that the images were really clear. And I learned later, and this is the same thing, like even during my PhD, I was just so frustrated. It's like, why do I have to edit this again? This paper, like I have 14, or I'd go and this would be like paper version 32 or 31. It's like, I've gone through this so many times, it was just so painful. And then what I realized later in my career was that it turns out ideas are competitive. And sometimes the person who is able to communicate their ideas more effectively, more clearly, is the one who sees their ideas implemented in practice. And it turned out that, all of this struggle, it was worth it, right? It made a huge difference. And I find, especially in the business situation which I work in, at Smart Technologies, I'm an external research manager, so we're often showing research ideas to executives. Executives don't have time to listen to some long, boring talk, or you've got some really long presentation with a bunch of slides on it. They don't have time for that. So it has to be clear, it has to be concise, it has to be short, right? All of those things are just so important. And so, the next step was, for me, so my dad was a chemist, okay? And so naturally, upon entering university, I thought, yeah, chemistry, that's what I should do. Oh, before I go into that, I want to show you one other thing. So it was kind of at the end of high school, beginning of university, that I discovered colored mind maps. And this is totally changed. Like you'll see, like what you see here is my entire presentation. So an hour of talking in one slide. It blew my mind, It made it so much easier for me to review things. So you have a main concept in red in the middle. You have the green just on the outside. So if you don't have a lot of time, you just review the green parts. Then you have the blue parts afterwards, which can go into more detail. And then if you have more time, it goes black, and then it goes red again. It just cycles. And for me, I've always struggled with studying for school. Studying for school was just such a pain. Like I could never remember. Everything was written linearly, and like when you'd read it, you'd fall asleep. Like your head would be banging on the table because it was just so boring. And I found with this, it's like, oh, wow, this is just so much more easy for me to recall. And one of the things that's kind of a funny story. I remember during, I think it was a biology class, somebody asked, "Hey, can I borrow your notes?" And so I sent them one of these, and they never asked me for notes again. Nobody can understand it. So it was hard for others to understand, but for me, it was just like this was really, for me, it was kind of a recognition that actually I don't think in a very linear way, and actually finding a way to kind of represent some of my thoughts on paper was so important, right? Like everybody had been writing notes, and yeah, I'd get notes from people, but I wouldn't understand them in the same way. But I find when I write with mind map, my recall of that meeting is very close to 100%. Like it's just really amazing, and I don't need to write every word. I just summarize, just the key things. And so this is kind of interesting. Something I wanted to share with you, just because it's something that's been really impactful for me. Yes, there's tablets. Yes, there's laptops. You can use that for taking notes. But this is definitely my preferred method. So back to chemistry. So a little bit about chemistry. I mentioned already that my dad was a chemist. So I decided, okay, first year I'm going to try out chemistry. And it was extremely painful. In the first year, I broke more glassware than I paid in tuition. All right? I spilled sulfuric acid on my shoes, right? Like it had a big hole in it, right? And one of the things that just killed me was that, for every single one of those chemistry assignments, there was a formula. There was step-by-step instructions. You do this, then you do this, then you do this. And not only that, the answer was known. They knew what you should get on the other end, right? So in terms of creativity, it was completely shut. There was no option, right? And so for me, like I was very nervous because, first of all, my dad is telling me all these horror stories about how every single chemical out there causes cancer, and I'm not feeling very confident, right? And also, if I vary from their instructions in even a little, in a small way, I won't get the results that they're looking for, right? And so there wasn't that opportunity to explore. And this is something that actually made it really, really difficult for me. But in my chemistry major, I was also required to take some courses particularly in computer science. And so this is kind of the main crux of the story. The computer science courses that I had to take were with Katrin Becker. Some of you may know her. I asked for her permission for this photo, by the way, and she said, okay. One of the things that I found in my introductory computer science courses is all her assignments, just like any course, they had assignments as well. But the assignments had, here's the base minimum that you need, the requirements, in order to get 90 or 100% on the course. But then on the other side, there was all these bonus things that you could do. There's these things like express yourself, through this assignment. So not only was it an assignment that you could do the base requirements, but you also had the ability to put in your personality. Talk a little bit about who you are. Show that you can move above and beyond what is required for this assignment. And that, my friends, blew my mind. All right? So it kind of told me that computer science is this domain where it's not just, the assignment, the thing that needs to be done. It's not this closed environment. It's actually wide open, right? Computer science is something that you can explore, you can express yourself, you can be creative, right? This is really my dream. And so as a result, I changed. I switched my major. Right? I said, okay, I'm not doing chemistry anymore. I'm going to do computer science because this is a field that allows me to be creative, to express myself. And I can't emphasize this enough. Even within our company, at Smart Technologies, we talk about this notion of homework worth doing, all right? So there's lots of homework assignments out there, and a lot of them are pretty standard. I mean, you could, for a lot of them, you can go to Google and you can kind of find out what the answer is, right? But homework worth doing is something that allows you to be creative. Something that allows you, and to me, creativity is very closely connected with expression, your ability to express yourself, right? So a really good assignment is not one that's closed-ended, that, we know the answer, on the other end. It's something that is open-ended, allows you to express yourself. Homework worth doing. That's kind of been a real mantra of some of the stuff that I've been trying to do at Smart as well, is the quality of the tools that we provide at Smart Technologies is directly proportional to how much are people able to express themselves in this tool, right? How much freedom do they have to show who they are to their classmates, right? Those types of things are the things that matter in terms of the 21st century skills, and I'll get into that in a bit. So, I'm on this wild ride in computer science, and I quickly got quite interested in research. And at the time, for those of you who have known me for a long time, you know that I was into mobile devices kind of really early on, before they were cool. People say I'm the guy with the the cell phone on his pocket, or the cell phone holder on the side. And back in the day, I asked some professors, hey, there's these new phones that came out, these awesome WAP phones. All right, I want to do some really cool research with them. And so they're like, well, I'm not the right prof to talk to. Go talk to this other professor, Saul Greenberg. And I distinctly remember one of the conversations I had with him, one of the first conversations I had with him. His message was, well, why design for these mobile phones, right? Why don't you just instead assume that these mobile phones, the power of your desktop computer, will be available in your mobile phones in, say, 10 years, right? So figure out what you want to do first, and then worry about the technology later. And I learned a very powerful lesson that day, and that was that never let the current state of technology limit your creativity. We often say, oh, I can't do that because of blah, blah, blah technology. Why? Right? Why limit yourself? Right? And that really became a real mantra for myself for the next couple of years. It didn't matter whether or not the technology could work on these mobile devices. It just mattered that what do you want to do, right? Let's think about what you want to do first, and then we'll worry about the technology getting into a mobile device later. Okay. So as a result, I did a few internships with Saul, and one of the first ones is a little bit of exploration. We wanted to explore these multi-contact services. So you can imagine a table where more than one contact is possible, but it's not like you could just go into a store and just go and buy a multi-touch surface at the time. There were no iPads. Those types of devices did not exist. So what we did, and some of the people in the room are still here. Don't worry, I don't have any audio. So we started exploring multiple mice, right? So you would use a mouse cursor, on a tabletop, and you would do your drawing. It was crude, but it worked, right? It allowed us to explore things. And so here, some of Tony's work, it's great. I get to show everybody else's work, as a result. We were building tools, infrastructure, basically, to allow these to be shown. Moving on, you can see, here's a little drawing program, and they have little menus that can appear. It was really just asking the question, okay, let's say you had multi-contact. What would you want to do? Okay. And I'll move on. Oh no, there's one more game that I really liked. Yeah, it's called SDG Rush Hour. And so it was just a car movement game. You could have a couple people kind of solving this puzzle. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed exploring this. And so we were early, right, in terms of the multi-contact API work. And as a result, I was able to get a few internships, actually, at different companies. And so one of the companies that I was able to get an internship at was Smart Technologies, the company that I'm working for now. And believe it or not, we were one of the first, I think it was in 2003, we were super early in terms of the pinch to zoom kind of interaction. Just because we had the technology, we had built the tools to explore it, we were able to kind of look at these things very, very early, like very early on, before most people had even considered that. So that was really cool. And as a result of this work that I did at Smart, I also had an opportunity to do an internship at Mitsubishi Electric Research Labs to work on their Diamond Touch. They had a new tabletop that was able to detect certain gestures. So I'll give you an example. You could do things like, it could detect multiple points of contact, like 2 fingers, or it knew that you were drawing with a line, or if you had a fist on there, or the side of a hand, it was able to detect that. All right, so that was kind of cool at the time. There wasn't a lot of technologies that could not just recognize multiple contacts, but to recognize postures, like postures of the hand. And so that's something that it was really neat. I did at the beginning of the internship. And then I had a conversation with my supervisor, right? And I told him, you know what? I'm really, really passionate about video games. One of the key motivators for me initially for exploring this computer science was also I love games. I love playing them. I love kind of playing with the innards of games. Can I please, please, please work on games? What do you think her response was? What do you think? No, exactly. She's like, no. Right? How many times have you had an idea where you really wanted to work on something, somebody said no? So, what did I do? Well, I came in on the weekend. I came in on the weekend. I built a prototype, and I showed it to them the next day. And so that's kind of what we have here. So this is the system. It allowed you to use voice commands and gestures on an interactive table. But instead of building the app, which is a lot of work, we just built these kind of really fancy mouse simulators. So it looked like you were directly controlling Google Earth. So you could say things like fly to Boston. You could pan and zoom, but it would take forever. So you could say discrete commands like fly to Boston, show the roads, show the different layers. It was a lot of fun because you'd see the animation kind of happening on the other end. It was pretty exciting. So here, these are the different layers. You can have show the buildings, or you could have show certain characteristics. So you would show the list of layers on the side as well. So restaurants, you could show the 3D buildings. I mean, this is 2005, way before the Microsoft Surface, right? And all the demos. You see these things nowadays. You see this stuff, and you're like, oh yeah, big deal. It's kind of been done. But when we were initially doing it, there was nobody. There was nobody really exploring this stuff. We were really early. We were probably the first, to explore this stuff. It was really exciting. And one of the so this one, just the simple, what's the distance from here to here? That was kind of a really simple example. But what's neat was what happened afterwards. So I talked about the video games. So the video game that I worked on, which you saw earlier, was Warcraft 3. And so that was really cool. Still quite a bit. Okay, let me skip the video and let's go directly to Warcraft. So here, you could enter in commands like move here, attack here, label this as as unit 1, move here. These commands were really cool because it felt like you were this command and control officer, and you could literally say I have this command, attack here and move here. So it was very engaging, and what was really cute was the response of these little robots afterwards, because the characters have feedback already. So they'd say ooh, dabu, or something like that. Yes, master. So like it was just hilarious because you get this like constant feedback from the computer that yeah, it understood you. And so this particular research that you see here, and maybe I'll go on to the next slide, actually became the topic of my PhD, right? So I guess that's kind of a message for everyone around here is that sometimes we will be remembered more for the few times that we decide to break the rules than all the times that we followed the rules. And this was a great example of that. It turns out that this particular work, this is the work that was picked up by the media, right? It was picked up by the BBC, Engadget, picked up by National Geographic. This particular video is really hilarious. I'm just going to show you a brief portion of it. So it's using my system, but you see this person over here, like there was two people dressed up in like police uniforms. These are like researchers that I worked with. Apparently, like the National Geographic went and bought some costumes and got them to wear. It's hilarious because like if you knew their personalities, you'd know that like, they're nothing like police officers. So, you know, it was something that garnered a huge amount of attention. And actually, later, I'm thinking like much later, this particular work was actually used as prior art in the Apple versus Samsung case. I ended up like kind of being a consultant for that because this work predates a lot of the work that people had claimed in patents, for example. So it worked out really well, right? It kind of opened up the possibility to say like, hey, people are hungry for this. I remember the first time I posted some videos of this on YouTube or on social media in general, and people would say, that's fake. There's no way. They must be using like some kind of like kind of green screen or some kind of special 3D special effect. They didn't believe it was real. And then later, like 10 years later, saying like 2015 or something, people are like, yeah, I remember, 10 years ago, I posted online, I said like, this is totally fake, couldn't be real. And now, all of that technology, right, is right here in your phone, right? Everybody's got like, if you showed it today, no, it would not surprise anybody, right? So, it's quite interesting, like not everybody is convinced, but that was kind of what happened at the time. It actually became like it was one of the top rated videos on YouTube. It was pretty cool at the time. And so, in addition, so now we're at the stage where I'm finished my PhD. I'm kind of taking you through chronological order. I joined Smart Technologies. And so one of the first things that we got to work on was this table for education. Now, specifically, not any grade, kindergarten to grade 3. So we were going to take this whole domain and we're just going to compress it to this small little area. And so, this particular prototype was super hacky. You see the table and the cabinet in here. Inside is like a laptop hanging and some projectors. Like inside, like the guts of this is pretty disgusting. And it like the initial software was so hacky. It had photos that I took from the zoo, and it had like a character who would give you feedback, and it was my voice like up 2 octaves. So it sounded really squeaky. So I'll just show you, just some brief, like you probably get the picture of it really quickly. You had a bunch of activities. And there's like the simple paint. Oh man, kids love paint. Here there was just some really simple, like you're trying to combine words, and you had to agree on an answer. Like the super early, super hacky. We just barely got it to work. And so this one, alphabet, just words, just combine them together. So I think you get the point. Super rough, right? And I remember, this is just a ping pong. We didn't even know what we were doing at the time. I remember presenting this to and this is the famous like picture scaling thing. This is like so common these days. Like it doesn't even seem like a big deal, but at the time it was like we're talking 2007, 2008. Yeah, it was kind of hadn't been really shown before. So, I remember presenting this to the chief executive officer of our company at Smart Technologies. And, I said, well, if this becomes a product, right? Didn't know. And she stopped me right there. And she said, no, it's not if. We are making this a product. And she had all the VPs around it. You would see their eyes like light up. And they're like, wow, we're really going to move forward with this, right? And so that actually determined kind of that was basically what I worked on for pretty much the next 2 years. So this is kind of like a later iteration of the Smart Table, and you can see like it was this product that it was interesting. Like it was the first time I got to work with the interdisciplinary team. Like you have people in marketing, you have people in finance, you have people industrial design, electrical engineering, hardware, development. So just all over, right? And it was a huge commercial success. It was kind of interesting. We sold more units of the Smart Table into just that tiny market, K-3 education, than all the other tabletop, products combined, right? So that includes like the Microsoft Surface, the Taction tables, like any other table out there. We sold way more of these than anywhere else combined, and so it was just a really incredible experience. Something that I just learned a ton. It was more just like how to work in a team, right? How to a lot of my graduate experience was, oh, here's a project that I built on my own. But something like this was too big for one person to build. You really had to depend on a lot of people. But at the end of the day, it was just about showing, hey, I've got this vision, I've got this idea for what a table could be, and just showing people what are the possibilities and getting them to think creatively about how we can solve the problems that we run into. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about 3D. I've spent a lot of time, because making 3D really easy to use has always been like kind of a pet project of mine. Even during my undergrad, this is a project I did for like a graphics animation course. It was just like puppetry. So you could just like take puppets and you could, one of them was a 5-finger type puppet. So the middle finger would move the head, and then it would move, these 2 fingers would move the arms, and these 2 fingers would move the legs. Super hacky, right? And we were using these like bend sensor type gloves. It was like super early. Like there was no Kinects or anything at this time to play with. And then here we just did a simple like oral one. So it was just like you can open and close the mouth and you can sing a song. It was really cute, and we connected it to a program. I remember presenting this to somebody who used to be an animator at Pixar, and he's like, oh, people at Pixar are never going to want to use this. They're always going to want to tweak, the exact facial expressions of your character so subtly, and he didn't really get it. Like the point was not really to improve like animations for professional animators. It was just to make it more accessible, just to make it so that anybody could go and do an animation. Like you may not know how to animate a character, but this is one example. Oh, and this one was with I had two of them connected over a network as a fun little project. So, speed up a couple years. I'm at Smart Technologies, and we're really, really interested in making 3D content easier for teachers. So how do we do that, right? So one of the approaches that, like some of the problems that we had to solve, like 3D was well known, and like it was already, but in terms of the interaction, it was how do you make it so that when you interact over the 3D content, your hand and your body kind of gets in the way of the 3D content. So how do you make sure that the person is not, like the person that is the teacher is not in the way when they're presenting? Some of that involved rotation handles that were kind of on the bottom, of the display that you see here. Sometimes it involved like a rotation that kind of fades out over time. I don't know if that one shows it. And then having automatic animations. So something that you could like just start animating. And one of the key things that we did here is we put it as part of the 2D layered content. So think of it like a PowerPoint slide. The 3D content is just the same as you'd add an image, right? So it was very easy. It didn't require teachers to think about a new design paradigm. There wasn't like a view that would change. That was something that was needed to kind of make 3D really easy or really accessible to teachers. And so this is something that we ended up releasing in the product. This is probably my first experience leading a team. I think it was like about 10, 12 developers. And it was really cool. Like, we had to solve a lot of problems creatively. And it was not just about like me being creative, but it was like, how do I encourage a team, to be creative and come up with solutions? I don't know how to solve all these things. I'm not the resident expert in computer graphics. How would you solve it? Or what are ways that we can solve this problem? And so it was really cool just to see all the stuff that the team had come up with. And I think this is, to me, it was a real message that sometimes when you're talking to people, you can either open up possibilities or you can shut them down, right? If you have to tell somebody, okay, you go and code this, right? Like, go and make this component, and here's the exact spec. Or I could give them something more open-ended. I could say, well, I don't really know how to solve this particular problem. What do you suggest, right? Why don't we kind of, do you want to do a brainstorm or something? Have them involved. Have them think about, ideas on their own. And when they do this, they're much more engaged, right? They're much more motivated to go, okay, I'm going to spend the extra time. Maybe I want to code this at home, like, I'm so excited about this. That's awesome, right? Like, being able to express yourself or being able to be creative is the most powerful intrinsic motivator out there. And I found that, when it comes to leading a team, it's not just about like you, the authority. Like, that's not the point. It's about how can the team, express their own creativity. How can they also be involved? So this is a later later exploration with research. What we have here is kind of like a holographic projector where we don't need to actually use glasses. The way that this particular research prototype worked is we had a kind of little ping pong ball, half ping pong ball there. You see there's like a capacitive ring, on the top for activating the touch. And there's a projector, just projecting into the bottom, super hacky. And you see there's this parabolic mirror. I don't know if you've ever seen these magic mirrors. Something really basic, and then we drilled a hole in the bottom. This is like 2012, like a long time ago. And so it's another kind of exploration into 3D, but Smart never ended up selling like a product, a holographic projector product. So why am I showing you guys this? For me, the big thing was there was another company that filed a patent on this particular work. That company's name starts with an A. Yes. Apple actually had a patent on this as well. And they recently received, what you see here is an office action. So when you file a patent, people will say, no, we can't accept the claims. So the office action rejects the claims of the patent, citing prior work. And what was really cool is that our patent right here, like the stuff that we had filed, the work that we had done, ended up, helping to invalidate their patent. And I don't know about you guys, but in my field, like, invalidating an Apple patent is a mark of honor. So, this is kind of, it was neat. Like, it was just to see that we were early, right? That we were able to explore. So, to me, it made me think a little bit. Let me back up a little bit. So now that I'm reflecting, you probably want to know a little bit more about what am I doing today, right? Like, what are the things that I'm involved with? And I wanted to kind of highlight that a lot of my efforts lately have been about trying to encourage creativity among both teachers and students, right? And so one of the methods that we've been doing that is by running hackathons. So, for example, our company is sponsoring 12 hackathons in this coming year, all across North America and Europe. And hackathons are not just like let's get together, let's write some code. Like, we create like little videos, you see a panda, you see a squirrel in there. We had dolls, we had, different things like to inspire creativity among the participants of our hackathons. But further to this, we're building tools. Like Smart Technologies is really focused on building tools that allow people to express themselves. And I kind of mentioned this before, but the quality of a tool really depends on your ability to express yourself through that tool. Is it open-ended or is it closed-ended? You know, and so we will ask students. One example is I'm working with this Professor Emden, right? So for example, he's from Columbia University. He does these really cool science genius rap battles. And so what they are is you take a bunch of keywords, you have the definitions for them, go, make a rap, right? Make a rap about this. And it's amazing. Like you'll see in an hour, they can come up with this really crazy, you give them a beat, you know, they start singing with it, they start writing lyrics that reflect who they are as a person, lyrics that reflect things that are happening in their lives. It's really amazing, right? And these, to me, that's homework worth doing, right? That's something that's exciting, and that's something that people will want to share with their parents. That's kind of the types of activities that we're really focused on at SMART. And so I just want to summarize some of the things, and I'm just going back to the same points, is that really I see creativity and your ability to express yourself as being very much connected, right? So you could be creative, and especially in the younger ages, you're still trying to figure out who you are. You're still trying to figure out what should I be doing in life? Well, having more opportunities for that in school is really powerful, right? It really makes a huge difference. Creativity, like many things, is evolving. And self-expression is also evolving. So, you know, we talk about social media as a mechanism, not just for kind of showing, hey, this is like what I did today. It's a medium for self-expression, right? It's a very powerful way to share with your friends about, hey, what's happening in your lives? You know, like let me tell you more about my personality, or let me tell you more about me, right? And so thinking about how the creative output can connect to the social networks that students have, so important. And then communication. Communication is really, really evolving. I'm looking at how people do like vlogs these days, and the kinds of things like it moves from this superficial and high level to like gritty and real. And I feel that that's kind of where the future of expression is happening. We're seeing things that it's just really advancing the art, advancing the medium, right? Kind of like any creative medium, there's what it was designed for, and then there's the person. Like I consider some of the first programmers to be like composers, Beethoven. You know, if you think about it, like some of the stuff that he was doing was, everybody said like an orchestra is an orchestra, like you never have singers involved, that's something different. But he said, no, screw that. I'm going to do both combined, right, at the same time. And he didn't care what people thought. And again, it's one of those things where you're remembered more for the times that you broke the rules than all the times that you followed it. And with that, that's all I have. Thank you guys very much.
Does anybody want to ask any question? Ray?
Oh,
Go ahead,
awesome.
Graham, shout it out.
First one, that's rare.
Thank you.
Creativity and the correlation with risk taking.
Yeah.
Is there one, and how do Canadians rate with, say, our counterparts down south of the Americas?
Yeah. It's interesting. Risk is a very interesting word because it's so correlated with creativity. In that, those who are playing it safe, it's often hard to be creative within the confines of what society allows you. I recently learned that in a religious context, people refer to things as faith. Faith and risk are really two sides actually of the same coin. It's like if people they talk about the notion of increasing your vision, right? Broadening, making it bigger. It's hard to make it bigger without that level of risk. And often, yeah, you need to break down some barriers. You need to not follow the rules the way that everybody is telling you. It's so correlated, right? My inability, and it's not that like chemistry you can't be creative, my inability to be creative in chemistry was directly related to my hesitance to take risk, right? It's like, yeah, like I was really afraid, but my ability to be expressive in computer science was directly also correlated to my feeling that it was safe, right? So risk, safety, all of those things are really important to create an environment where people can be creative, they can think outside the box. Like if you think about like the last viral YouTube hit, you know, somebody did something that broke the rules. Somebody did something that was just totally radical, you'd never expect it. Those are the kinds of things that people want to share. Right? Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I probably don't need this.
Yeah.
You look into your crystal ball and tell us what you see as the future of your work.
The future of my work?
What you're working on now and where do you see that going?
Okay. You know, for me, I often hesitate to kind of talk about the future just because, like, we have no idea where the market or where people will want to go. My preference is often, like, and you mentioned kind of my own work, is to talk about what I plan to do. So right now, I feel that there's a real crisis of like creativity happening right now in schools. If you go into your typical school across the United States, there's a lot of focus on standardized tests, right? So these are multiple choice tests. Every state has their own standard, and teachers teach to that test, right? And so this is really problematic. It was Andreas Schleicher from the OECD who said that skills that are easy to teach, easy to test, are easy to automate, digitize, and outsource, right? We're training people for this industrial era type education for like work jobs in factories that won't exist when they come and graduate. And so what are we doing to foster the 21st century skills of students? So things like creativity, communication, collaboration, critical thinking. You know, where's that in the curriculum? So to me, like the competition of smart boards is not iPads, it's not Chromebooks. It's Pearson, it's McGraw-Hill. It's those guys who make the standardized tests, right? The stuff that everybody's taking right now, that most schools use, that are saying, like, this is how you teach. Like some teachers are literally told, like, each day, what pages of the textbook you need to teach, right? And so they're saying, forget it. I'm not doing any PowerPoint or anything. I'm just, all right, let's open up our textbook, you know, page 33 to 45, that's what we're doing today, right? Like, it's really affecting us. And if you want to remain competitive, I do feel that creativity is going to be a key component. And for me, it's not only like a profession, but for me, it's very much a passion of mine, something that has been very dear to me, and I want other people to have that same experience. And you know, I'm really worried. Like when I went to school, you know, there was shop. You know, there was like media arts that you could take. Like there was all these different courses that were available. And now I go into schools and I see, no, they've all been replaced with computer labs. I'm like, well, I hope those computer labs, you know, are allowing you to express yourself in the same way. Somehow I'm a little bit hesitant. I think probably not. Like I look at your typical educational game on the iPad and it's closed. Right? You can play the game and there's a particular path, but if you want to be creative and express yourself, it's not an easy thing to do.
Yes. So this whole computer challenge, unless you had a picture of like a group of kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas, I think like a lot of devices, they try and go like one person to a device, like our phones or whatever. Was that a conscious decision on your part? Or was it because you were working with children or the classroom setting? How did that come about? Was it very natural?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Up to that point, most of the explorations we had worked with was with adults, right? And so you can imagine adults are very kind of clear. They have like a target, they reach for the target, and then they kind of like they touch, drag, move, kind of typically what you would do with a mouse. But what we found with kids is they never do that, right? They'll do things like they'll push along the side of an object in order to try to push it out of the way, because this is how they interact with the real world. And so we actually had to change everything, in the interactions. We had to make it so that people could cross, along the sides and then interact. We also had a problem where in Windows, you hit the close button, it closes for everyone, right? And that was hugely problematic. Like you'd hit the close button and then like everybody else would be like, hey, I'm not done yet. And so we actually had to like readjust the close button so that when you hit close, the little close button moves out of one corner and into the other corner, out of the personal space of one learner into the personal space of another learner. And they have to agree, like you have to get close, close. And so there were some times where a student would actually cover over their corner of the display and say, no, I don't want to close now. Right? And those are the kind of things that we would have never known until we explored it with trying it live with kids. So great question.
Thanks for your talk, Ed. Obviously, I did my master's with, well, not obvious, I did my master's with you, and it's incredible. I've never felt so old until just now watching those videos. Anyway, my question was about one of the things you said that SMART is trying to, I wrote my notes on this black, which is useless. One of the things you said that SMART's really interested in right now is this idea of homework worth doing.
Yeah.
Really compelling idea. So what is SMART doing to try to address that? What's its role to play, and what are you doing to help that along?
Okay. Just to give you a little bit of like perspective, like teachers are not, so most of our customers or the people who use our products on a day-to-day basis are teachers, but we also have products specifically for students. They're kind of split into two segments. So in kindergarten to grade 6, generally you have one teacher that teaches all subjects, and then in secondary, like 7 to 12, generally they teach individual subjects, so one subject, and then you have your students cycle through. That's right. So it's very different, the dynamic. So when it comes to creation, especially in the secondary domain, it's mostly about, it's less about the student coming up. So K to 6, like going up to the smartboard is like a real treat. They love doing it. It's so much fun. But then like by the time you hit 7 to 12, it's like, oh, it's not cool anymore. I don't want to embarrass myself in front of my friends. And so you need more student-led creation. And to that extent, we've been doing some pretty interesting things with software called Smart Amp. And what it is a software that allows you to do creation right on your iPads. So it allows you to, on a kind of large infinite canvas, you can have pictures, you can write things. And so some of the cool examples that I've seen, and like you talk about, we talked about the homework worth doing. An example that I saw, and this wasn't something that I developed, it was something from Dawson College. They built this big canvas, and on it you would have to define what are all the electrical appliances in a particular room in your house. So you would say, okay, in my room I have a laptop, I've got a light, I've got these things. Why do you have these things? So it's an opportunity to express yourself. And then you'd have to measure how much electricity does each one of those use. You have to do a measurement. And then they would do this for each room. So one person would do a kitchen, another person would do another bedroom, one person would do a living room, and it was cool. You would see this like house. So how much energy does this particular house use? To me, those types of activities are the worth doing. Like I would go home and I'd want to like check out in my home like what's there, and I want to see more of those types of activities for student creation. Even the stuff like the rap battles. That's another example of a homework worth doing. If you had something that oh, maybe I want to tweak the lyrics a little bit, or maybe I want to add a few more things. Like people can take it home, right? Like it doesn't have to stop. Many of the slides, for example, are on Google Apps for Education, for example. So many of them, it's very easy for people to take home. That's a great question.
All right, hello. Thank you for your talk, first and foremost. I have a quick question. So nations such as China and India, their education systems are very driven towards exams. However, when you compare that with a nation, let's say Finland, they're more driven towards creativity. So what do you think is the best combination of creativity and learning to the exam would be the best for, let's say, Canada?
That's a great question. What you mentioned there, typically on the OECD PISA scores, like this is the kind of general ranking for all schools, you will see that places like Shanghai and China like consistently rank at the top, or Korea. And they're very much a direct instruction method. So they focus on study for the test. I remember talking to one professor in Korea. He said that, the only time he sees his children is like Sunday morning for a few hours. Every other time they're at some kind of prep course. So it's super intense, and that's one way of teaching and getting really great grades. But then on the flip side, if you go to some place like Finland, it's very inquiry driven. So it's like, what do you guys want to explore? But it puts a much larger burden on behalf of the teacher. And like they pay their teachers well there. But it's difficult to expect that everybody is going to be able to do that. And if you look at education within Canada and the United States, Finland, people want to become teachers before they want to become doctors or lawyers, right? Like this is like a top, like you are a community leader if you're, and so it's difficult to expect that everywhere. But my feeling is it boils down to, I think there's a combination of both, right? Like my feeling is studying for tests, it's still going to happen. Like those standardized tests are not going away anytime soon in the United States. But if you can have templates, and the key here is something that can fit within one class that they can try. So for example, if you can try something creative in one class, you'll have some results that you can show. Then it's something that is worth doing, right? If you have this program and it requires several weeks to like 10 weeks, for example, for this program to go through, well, they're not even going to try. It's just too high risk, for most schools. So technology has a real opportunity to lower the barriers to trying out these types of pedagogy. And my feeling is, in the long term, the students will benefit from that. So I think it's less about like, we kind of know what's the best way to go, but there's a long road towards that. My belief is that technology can shortcut, a lot of the barriers, especially when it comes to trying creative things. So, thank you.
Thanks for the talk.
Yeah.
As you were talking about your journey to creativity, which involved chemistry and then computer science for probably like 10 years almost, heavy in math, and I thought you could have shortcutted yourself by just buying a pair of swim trunks and kind of like finger painting or something in your house. What made you decide to go like this applied creativity, like study computer science for 10 years rather than just finger paint and be creative, as a child almost? Like there must be something. It seems like you're going for a big purpose as well with your creativity, not just kind of like let your inner child go anywhere it wants.
I'd like to say it was more purposeful. Like I had a grand vision for my life, but I think the truth of the matter is it was more just something that allowed me to express myself. And I think, really the way I see computer science and the field as a whole is it's just a tool, right? It's one of many tools out there that you can use to express yourself. And yeah, like I could have done something with, video, and actually I still do. Like I do other things like music directly or creating these kind of wacky videos, for just for fun. And those are very powerful mechanisms. It's just, I found something truly unique, truly me in the exploration of computer science. And for me, it was like, I wanted to be doing something really unique. Like I wanted to really separate myself, from what else was out there. And so I felt that computer science allowed me to explore not just the software world of things, but also the hardware side, like the combination of the two. Because if I was just going to build an app, then I'm competing. So this is another kind of message for you guys. I've always been afraid of competition. Something that I've always found that if you are in a competition, there's going to be other people that are going to be better than you in one way or another. You're gonna be stacked up against some guy who's just like, let's say, a programming competition. You're gonna be stacked up with this guy who's like a programming genius. He's gonna rock you, right? And so I've always been looking for like a kind of an open field that there's not a lot of competition in, right? So to me, that's where things are exciting, right? Like if I feel like the more competition that you have, the more it's referred to in our field as like dogma, that often is. So the more rules that exist, the more typical like the things that you have to do are well known. Like the more your activities, the things that you spend your day to day, the more they are structured around what's previously being done. And if you really wanted to kind of explore creativity, you want to move ahead, it's important to find a new field or find something that's very different from what's out there. I think it was Steve Jobs who referred to like dogma, right? Like people are so kind of overwhelmed with the dogma of the current society. Like you have to have these, you've got to do these types of things before you can become successful. Well, why? Like people are nowadays are asking questions like, why do I need to own a home? Why do I need to own a car? Like, why do I need all these things that tell other people that I'm successful? Why do I need a fancy watch or fancy clothes? Those types of things. Like people are really starting to question the fundamentals, and I love that. It's those kind of things out there that are the most opportunity. I think it was Peter Thiel in his book 0 to 1 that kind of explained it best. He said that there's this irony between capitalism and competition. Namely, environments with lots of competition, those companies who are involved don't make a lot of money, right? Whereas if you look at the opposite of competition, like a monopoly situation, I don't know, like Google, like search monopoly, sure, right? That's where the real money is made. The huge profits. Like the airline industry, tons of competition. What's the difference between one product versus the other? Like you're just flying to one place. Maybe there isn't a huge amount of difference, right? So the actual profit margins of those companies is tiny, even though they bring in huge amounts of revenue. But if you can find something that is unique, there's just huge opportunities for growth. And that's kind of where we've kind of based a lot of our philosophy within SMART is we're within the research team, we are like a startup, within the company. We don't have the same kind of risks in terms of like if this doesn't succeed, we're all out of a job, we're all going to be an EI. But we are trying to find out new value propositions, ideally something that nobody else is doing, right? Like we could like very easily go into standardized testing and try to compete with the likes of Pearson, McGraw-Hill, but why? Right? Like these are billion-dollar companies, that are already very well entrenched in that area. Why not explore something like totally different? So that, to me, it's been a philosophy. Like fear of competition is sometimes a good thing. Like you always want to, if somebody else goes and does what we're doing, like say there's another table that comes out, I want to figure out, well, how do we make that irrelevant? How do we say we've already moved on to the next thing, right? And if you're not constantly moving in that dimension, you're always going to be pushed on margin. Like your products are always going to be, well, some company in China is going to just make it cheaper. So.
Well, I think we have kind of run out of time. The people from catering are here to take away the tables and things. So with that, thank Edward one more time for everything.
Thank you so much.
We do have a small gift.
Oh, okay. Wow. Thank you.
So in appreciation for your time and effort, we'd like to present you with
Thank you so much.
A little token of our appreciation.
Wow.
I'd also like to recognize before we go one other sort of VIP special guest that we have in the audience today, and he doesn't know I'm going to say this. So Adrian, could you wave your hand, please? Adrian was on the board of the computer science chapter of the University of Calgary Alumni Association when it formed 10 years ago.
Wow.
And so this being our 10th anniversary, the 2016-17 academic year, and also the 50th anniversary of the University of Calgary, we have a small gift for all of you this evening. On your way out, if you could pick up a business card holder like this, they're available in red, black, and I believe there might be some silver ones, maybe. But please pick one up. They have the University of Calgary logo on, and we have enough for you all. So congratulations to us, 10 years. Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you.
And especially thank you very much, Edward. I hope you enjoy the book we chose for you.
Thank you so much.